Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome into another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And if you're joining us for the first time today, as so many of the horde of you are, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, all year long, we feature amazing members of the IUCN and the incredible Reverse the Red initiative, showcasing amazing people and stories of saving wildlife on planet Earth. But today is kind of bittersweet because it's the end of a really epic series. Now, all week long, we have been partnering with the amazing folks at the Canadian Wildlife Federation. I really encourage you to check out their broader work here to showcase stories on salmon, hummingbirds, pronghorns, and monarch butterflies yesterday. That was our final one. They're all on our channel. You can check them all out on YouTube for like 3 weeks or 3 years down the road. They're all going to be there. But today, we're wrapping up with the biggest program of all, literally, and in terms of audience. We've got a really cool animal for you today. And before I introduce it, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to pull up this game pin, play along with a little 4-question quiz to test your understanding and have some fun, you can do that, and we'll be in that in about 25 minutes. But without further ado, I'm so pleased to welcome in Shiva, joining us from the Canadian Wildlife Federation to talk about whales. There's a reason we have such a big audience today, because whales are the best. If you haven't seen a whale, head to a coast immediately. In fact, leave this broadcast, go to the east, go to the west, go check out a whale. It'll change your life, I promise. But in lieu of that, while we're here together, we're going to learn a little bit about them in an amazing presentation. So Shiva, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us, and take us away.
Thank you so much. That was an incredible introduction. I completely agree that whales are the best and the coolest animals. And so I'm very excited to be chatting with you all today. And I have a little bit of a presentation for us to get started.
I want to note, as you're bringing this up, that you said to me beforehand that this is on Canva, and I'm going to do a special plug, an unpaid plug for Canva, that it's the best tool for presentations of all time, and you're going to see that in some of the amazing animations and videos here. So looks like you are good to go. Take us away.
Amazing. All right. So I'm very excited to be talking to you all today about the incredible, incredible world of whales. And so before we begin, one of the first things that we want to talk about is what exactly is a whale. And so when you think about a whale, oftentimes we gravitate towards this particular image on the bottom here, those really impressive large animals with the big flippers, the big tails that come out of the water when they come up to the surface. But there's a little bit more to it when we talk about and ask the question of what is a whale. And the reason that there's a lot more to it is because it has a lot to do with size when we use the word whale. So whales are all the way at the bottom here, being the largest animals that we have. And in fact, they can be as large as 110 feet. And so what is 110 feet? So that can be as large as 3 school buses, huge school buses back to back. But it can also be as big as some of the biggest dinosaurs that we've ever had on our planet, and even bigger than one of the famous ones, which is the brachiosaur here. So oftentimes we say huge animals, what is the biggest animal that's ever existed? And everyone thinks about dinosaurs, but really all we have to do, as Jesse recommended, is go out to our coast and look out and see these incredible whales that are the largest animals that currently exist. And the biggest one, which is the blue whale, is the largest mammal invertebrate that has ever existed. And that's pretty impressive. And so if we go down the scale, there's also other marine mammals that are important in this conversation. So there's dolphins that you've probably heard about, but there's also these really small ones that are called porpoises. And they can be about 5 feet when they're fully grown. And so that's about as big as a park bench, or a bench that's just outside of your school. Or if you've ever met me, it's a little bit smaller than how big I am. So they're quite small. But so this is the sort of category of names that you often hear when we talk about whales, but also dolphins and porpoises. But within that whale name, there's quite a bit of variability. So we see these are all whales. So we have right whales on the left, we have humpback whales, but we also have killer whales and beluga whales. So you see they're all very, very different in how they appear, but there's also quite a bit of difference in terms of their size. So there's another whale that I haven't shown here that's just about 7 feet, so a little bit bigger than that small porpoise that I was mentioning earlier. And so, a really important term for us to know is this term here called cetaceans, which is a little bit difficult to spell. But within that word is all of these animals that we've talked about. So, whales, dolphins, and porpoises. So, now you're experts on cetaceans. And so, it's important to know the next step, which is how do we actually, as scientists, categorize these three different animals together? And so, really, there are two puzzle pieces that work together. And one of them is mysticetes. So whales, dolphins, and porpoises can be categorized into two groups. One of them are baleen whales, and the term mysticete is also given the name mustached whales, and that might be a little bit obvious, especially if you look at this image here where it looks like this whale has a mustache just inside its upper jaw. But these whales have these really incredible specialized teeth. So these are actually specialized teeth that serve a very important purpose. And what they do is act as these incredible filters. And what whales do is, as they're swimming across the surface, this is called skimming. They have their mouth open, they take a big gulp of water. And then what they do, and you can try this as you're sitting and watching this, is to try and push your tongue up to the surface, to the top of your mouth. And what that does when you've taken a big gulp of seawater with all the little goodies inside is that it then pushes the water out. And all that's left behind is the incredible goodies that these large whales aim for. They're small organisms like krill and also copepods. And so this impressive specialized tooth that are ballenes acts as this impressive filter that lets them filter out the water and just leave behind the good stuff. And so, in terms of size, these incredibly large whales feed on these tiny, tiny organisms that are about the size of a grain of rice. And that would be the same as if we were to take a spoonful of sand, although that wouldn't be very tasty, but equivalent would be if we took a big spoonful of really, really small refined sugar or cocoa powder. So you can see here how impressive and how close together those ballenes are that allows them to filter so well so that only the good stuff is left. So that's one group of whales. So these are the ones with the ballenes. And then the second group is what we call odontocetes. And these are the whales and include dolphins and porpoises that have teeth. So our toothed whales. So this is an example of it. All of their teeth are exactly the same. So they're very different to us, where we have very different front teeth, to our vampire or canine teeth that are very different from the teeth behind that. In these whales, they're all the same. And so we have toothed whales, and all of these animals that fit within the odontocetes can be as small as porpoises, like these guys here, which are the finless porpoise, super cute. And if he had its mouth open, there would be small little teeth there, to these really interesting looking pink dolphins that we see in South America in the river systems. And then these impressively large whales like the sperm whales that also have teeth. So now you are all experts at cetaceans. And so when someone says it's a whale, you can ask them, do you mean mysticete or odontocete? And the whales that I'm going to be focusing on in particular are the large whales. So we're talking both baleen and toothed whales, but the really, really impressive large or great whales. So the real question, again, I want you to think about this, is I'm giving you a bit of a hint here. Where can we find these incredibly large great whales? So if we look at this world map here, so we call our planet Earth, but it is very much dominated by water. We have these incredible oceans that spread across all the way from the north in the Arctic, all the way down to the south in the Antarctic. Where do we actually see these incredibly large mammals, these incredibly large whales? Well, if you guessed anywhere, that is correct. So we can find these large whales pretty much everywhere, from as north as the Arctic. So we have incredible bowhead whales that we see up in the north. And they're particularly impressive because we think that they can live up to and more than 200 years old, probably more than that, which is pretty incredible. We also have minke whales a little bit further south of them, and they have this really unique white patch on their fins, which is really fun to see when they jump out of the water. We can also see gray whales, especially in the Pacific here. They have these unique patches on them. We have sperm whales that are quite unique. They have this very square shaped, rectangle shaped front of their head, so they're really easy to spot. And then the most iconic whale is probably the humpback whale that we can see in a lot of places. But really impressive is that we can see them all the way down south in the Antarctic, so in really, really cold waters, along with the penguins. Then we have some really unique large whales, which are the Britties whales that we see all the way in and close to the Australian waters. So this is just a handful of some of the great whales and some of the impressive cetaceans that we can see out in the ocean. And these guys don't just hang out in one place. So they actually move around in some pretty unique patterns, which is the theme of some of the talks this week, which is about migrations. So these large whales don't tend to spend their time in one area, and they do move around. So what I want you to think about in terms of migrations is maybe you have a particular store or ice cream shop that you like to go to, especially in the summer times when they have, those amazing summer flavors. So there's one particular path that you might take every single time. Or it could be like every single day you're coming into school, either with a school bus or walking to school. So you have a direct path that you always take to and from school between September and June. And all of these are sort of human examples of migration. So they're predictable patterns that we take in special times of the year to a particular location for a particular reason. So whether it's for fun, whether it's for food, whether it's for play or socializing with other people. And these incredibly large whales are no different. So they actually undergo their own versions of migrations, but at a much larger scale, which is not surprising given how large most of the components of their life are. So this map is really impressive. It took a lot of researchers and a lot of time to build. And this is showcasing these migration patterns for some of the whales that I mentioned, including some of the other ones. So we have gray whales and also bowhead whales, and there's particular colors, if you can see them, hopefully. So these sort of lightish pink colors are the migration patterns of bowhead whales up in the north. They also extend along here. Then we have gray whales, which are a little bit of a green color, extending all the way out west. And then sperm whales as well, we see here in multiple places. And then humpback whales, as I said, go all the way down to the Arctic, and we see them coming here all the way from South America, but also parts of South Africa as well. So this is incredible. And these migrations are what we are calling whale superhighways, which are these known areas that these whales are traveling through to get to some really important spots, which I will talk about why. But what I want to focus on for this particular talk and the remainder of the talk is the North Atlantic right whale in particular. So I've sort of highlighted where that is on that map. So we're looking at the eastern part of the US and also here in Canada. And these are our study species for today. So you might notice there's some pretty unique features when it comes to the North Atlantic right whale. So the way that it got its name, right whale, is actually because it was a targeted and very much the kind of whale that whalers often went after, because they would float after they were harpooned down, and so they were the most ideal for that situation. But in terms of looking at them in particular, so they have this sort of dark color to them, and they have this white patch on their belly or their ventral side, which is quite unique to them. Because this is a mysticete, so as we expect for a mustached whale, we see these incredible baleen plates on the top part of their jaw and their mouth. What might be interesting, if you've ever seen a dolphin, for example, they have that really impressive dorsal fin at the top of their body. So these whales don't have that. So if you ever see a giant whale in the water that is completely smooth on its back, it might be a right whale. If it's far enough and they come up for air, there's a particular unique shape to their blow, so it's V-shaped. And then they have these really impressive structures on their face, which are called callosities. And they're just basically raised patches of skin. But what's unique about them is just like our fingerprints, or if you have an ID, the patterns of these callosities or raised patches of white skin actually are unique to every individual. And we can actually differentiate one individual right whale from another. So these are the right whales. And as I mentioned, I'm focusing just on the eastern part of the US and northern Canada, but their distribution was actually far bigger than that. So we could find the North Atlantic right whale all the way in the UK and also Western Europe and also parts of North Africa. And part of the reason why they've shrunk to the eastern US and Canada is because of whaling. And so within the area that we find them now, they're undergoing this incredible migration. So as I said, the superhighways, these large animals undergoing these impressive journeys from one area to another. So where are they actually going and why? So the right whales will spend the wintering months in the warm, nice, and tropical waters down south around Florida, North and South Carolina, with their young. So we see a lot of times mothers and calves, and these are protected areas that lets the calf grow in a safe space. And then they start migrating north, even now. So right now we're starting to see the right whales venture into northern U.S. in Maine, and then eventually, especially in next month, we're going to start seeing them in Canada, where they get to what we call foraging grounds. And this is where they go to feed on that good stuff, those small copepods that they love to feed on. And so I'm going to be focusing mostly on what's happening when they come to these foraging grounds. Oops. So what's happening with these right whales, not only are they really, really impressive, really large, we know where they are in the eastern part of the US, but we've also been tracking them for almost 30 years. So more than 20 years, we've been tracking them over time. And what we've noticed is that something is happening over the past 7 to 8 years where their numbers are actually going down. So we're not seeing as many babies being born as the number of whales that are dying out. So this, for us as scientists, is really important for us, and we need to know why so that we can put in methods and recommendations to make sure they continue to survive moving forward. So what's happening? Well, when they are migrating into these northern areas, they are overlapping in areas of heavy traffic. So as they're looking for the best areas of food to gulp in and use that specialized baleen to sift out the good stuff, what's happening is that at the same time that they're entering these waters, there's also a lot of human activity that's happening. So this video you can see here, the red spot, if you can follow it, is one right whale. And all of these blue lines are vessels or ships, like these big tankers that can be as big as skyscrapers, that it is trying to move around and get to as it's traveling from New Jersey through New York, and then it's eventually going to continue north into Canada. So it's navigating pretty well with what's happening there. And so this is where the Canadian Wildlife Federation, and in particular the Marine Program, comes in. And so what we want to know is what's happening when these whales are coming into Canadian waters, and what we can do to help protect them, especially knowing that over the last 7 to 8 years, their numbers have been going down. And you can basically split our team into two groups where we do field work, where we're outside working with people and going out on the water. And then the other team that is mostly on a computer and looking at data and trying to figure out what's happening. So one of the problems with fishing, or one of the challenges of right whales when they're coming into these feeding areas, is rope in the water. So when you fish, you have to use rope. And one of the ropes that's really risky is rope that connects from the surface of the water all the way down to the seafloor. And so if a whale was to swim through it, it would basically be this giant rope that is in front of it, and there's no way of it escaping. So the first thing we want to do is try and get rid of that rope, which we call buoy lines. And there's a number of really cool ways that we can do this. So there's actually incredible organizations that are using new technology. They're developing all these new ways that we can get rid of the rope in the water, whether it's by putting them in a cage and only having it be released when you want it to, or putting completely removing the rope and instead having this balloon that fills up when you're ready to pick your cage with the fish like lobster or crab and have it come to the surface. But what we want to know is whether this is actually successful for the fish harvesters who are trying to get crab and lobster and other fish as well. So we test them out with the harvesters. We go out on a boat. So this is one of the cages going into the water. And we want to see that it works properly and so that it can actually be used as a method to fish without it impacting fish harvesters' daily activity. So you can see the rope coming up, which is really great because it removes that rope that is really risky in the water for the whales. And this is an example on the right of how that balloon system works. So again, there's no rope in this case. It's just a balloon that gets filled up with a tank full of air whenever it is ready. Really, really impressive. That balloon fills up, comes all the way up to the surface, and then the fish harvesters can go and collect what they need. And so this is really great. So we're trying to figure out how this new technology works. And we can also lend out this impressive new technology to harvesters when the government closes down an area and in an effort to protect the whales. So that's one of the things that we do. The other risk for whales is the rope that connects between the traps on the seafloor. And we know this is a problem. So this is the same individual. Again, we know it's the same one because of these callosity patterns. And what we see is sometimes it's perfectly clean and sometimes it's super muddy. Just like if you have any dogs, I know my old lab used to do this all of the time, jumping right into the mud. And so we know that the only way for it to get muddy is for it to go all the way down to the seafloor. So we need to make sure that any rope that is connecting between traps is also not putting the whales at risk. And the way that we do this is by attaching these small little computers. They're basically the size of a small Easter egg chocolate, if any of you are stocking up right now. And we attach them onto the rope and we try and figure out where they are. What also helps us with trying to see how the rope is behaving in the water is by using cameras and videos. And we actually record what's happening with the rope underwater. We sometimes catch little fish that goes by. And so all of this is trying to figure out if this new technology is actually helping. The other side of the work that we do, again, as I said, is all on the computer. So this has to do with our assessment of what we call risk. And so this is trying to understand areas where we need to be a little bit more focused on in terms of what is happening with the human activities and also the whales. So this is a map of all of the right whale sightings that we're seeing here in Canada. So this is Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, parts of Quebec, and PEI. Down here would be Maine in the US. And what we want to see is where these dots are overlapping with the activities from humans. So these are all of the tracks that ships make. These are the areas where we're seeing fishing, particularly of snow crab. And we'll put these two together and see, okay, in these areas, they're high risk, or in these areas, the protections that are in place might need to be adjusted a little bit to ensure that these whales are going to be protected and they'll continue on into the future. So this overlap is what we're really interested in terms of a risk assessment. And so these are some of the things that we do, but we don't do it by ourselves in an office or in a vacuum. And we're very, very lucky that in addition to amazing events like this, that we can actually share our knowledge and share what we're finding out with all of the technology and all of the risk assessments to other scientists and other individuals across the world. So our team has been very fortunate to travel across Canada, all the way out to Vancouver, but also parts of the US like Boston and further south. And last fall, we were able to travel all the way to our furthest location down in Australia to share some of our knowledge with the work that we have done. And I keep saying we because this work is not done by me. It is done by an incredible team of amazing individuals who are not only passionate about whales, but also passionate about the work that they do. And so it takes an incredible team, all of which are being shown here, who help make this happen and who I'm very, very happy to represent today and to talk to you all. And with that,
With that, we're done. That was so beautiful. Shiva, I'm going to talk to the Canadian Wildlife Federation team and every other team we do so that they can all learn from you how to make a beautiful presentation. That was awesome. I'm like,
gosh.
professional detachment out the window. I see a lot of these, and that was like really, really, really good. So I appreciate you so much. And before we dive in with a Q&A, with hordes of questions already coming in on our YouTube chat, we are going to do our Kahoot together. So quite a few of you are already in this, but I brought up the game pin, and we're going to test some understanding, have a little bit of fun, see who is paying attention, and what you win for winning the Kahoot, everyone, is Shiva and I's everlasting respect. So no pressure at all. And if you want to help us out with any of the answers, by all means. And then we are going to head to Miss Minette, Miss Goddard's class. They've been joining us for the entire series on the Canadian Wildlife Federation. And anyone else that's on YouTube, please do chime in. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. But with that, we're going to get our drum roll going. We're going to get underway with our Kahoot. And let's get started. All right. 3, 2, 1. Number 1. True or false? The largest animal on Earth ever is a whale. You may have featured this at the beginning of your broadcast. In fact, we actually had a dinosaur program earlier today where I got to ask this exact question in the opposite context. So it's been very fun for me.
Amazing. Dinosaurs.
They're good. Dinosaurs are fun, but go on. Sorry. I interrupted.
No. Dinosaurs get too much of the credit for being large. We need to give more love to the whales.
And
yes.
Our audience nailed it with this, that whales are the biggest. Have you seen a blue whale in person?
I have not, and it is my biggest regret. It's at the top of my list. Yep,
you know
absolutely.
What? Come on out to the East Coast, and we'll go on. I've seen a fin whale. I've caught the second biggest, but not quite there yet. So one day.
Yeah.
All right. Dr. Jaguar's in our lead. I hope a name with whale in the title wins this. That's my goal. All right. Whales can communicate with complex whistles and calls. We did an amazing whale program with Dr. Shane Giro not too long ago, talking about their work in Dominica. And if you were at that program, you will know the answer to this. I think a lot of people know this already, Shiva.
Yes, acoustics. That's the field that this falls under. Really, yep.
They're so good.
They don't need us. They're good.
They don't need us at all. And also the fact that everyone gets their answer in before almost never happens.
Yeah.
So like not only are they right, but they're like particularly on the ball. All right. Bronze Raven takes our lead. Question 3. Let's see. This is a multi-select, so there's more than one right answer. It might be all 4, it might be 3, it might be 2. It's more than one. Is entanglement and fishing nets a threat? Boat strikes, acoustic or too much noise in the water, and climate change. Those are our options. It's at least one. Maybe it's all 4 if you've ever joined me for a Kahoot before.
Yes.
One thing I find really interesting on the climate change front is that orcas are changing their territory a little bit. So they're going to hunt things that aren't used to being hunted by them, which I find really fantastic. We've covered that in a few of our broadcasts in the past. But all 4 are correct answers.
Climate change is a big one for right whales. So I didn't mention part of the reason. So they've actually shifted further north into the Gulf, and that's we're thinking it's because of climate change. So it's all of the above usually when it comes to threats to animals, unfortunately.
Now, on a fortunate note, as we go into question 4 with Fabulous Pigeon coming up into the bronze medal position, fortunate might be your hint for this answer, but whales can come back if given the chance. Is this true or false? Now, one thing we didn't talk about too much is that like whales used to be hunted. We talked about that they used to be hunted all around the world, but when it was banned, we've been studying them really in depth since that happened. And it's been really interesting to see how a lack of hunting might have, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, helped some of those populations. And yes,
that's amazing.
Like this is true not just for whales. We've covered this in every one of our programs this week. But if you give wildlife space, it will come back. Nature is remarkably resilient if we just don't keep harassing it and hunting it and doing other things to put it under threat.
Not just come back, but live longer. So there's a recent study that suggested that whales can actually live longer, but because we've been hunting them so much that they haven't been given the chance to. So yeah, absolutely.
Think about how happy you are to be students in an awesome classroom with your super cool teachers that keep joining in on Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. And imagine if instead you had to like run around and be hunted by things all the time. That would be the worst. Don't get hunted by
Yes.
things. It's way less stressful to be in class, I promise. Uh, Guys, you guys rock. Bronze Raven, you're our winner. If you are any of those folks, let us know who you are in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. But we're going to dive in with questions. So please inundate us in the chat. We've got a whole bunch from our water rockers in Guelph. They want to know how many kinds of whales migrate up to eastern Canada. Do we have a figure on this for species number?
Ooh,
Ooh, no pressure.
I don't know about number, but we do. There are other whales out east, so you can probably see blue whales. You can see fin whales, um, humpbacks. I think you might also see sei whales, um, minke
Ooh,
whales.
yes,
So some of those are a little bit more rare, but they are out there. So there's a good selection for you to pick
there
from out
is.
east. Yes.
I had no idea we got sei whales up here, and they're like a really beautiful. They're like the Ferrari of whales. Like they're really like an elegant, elegant whale. So that's one of my
Yeah.
dreams to see one of them too.
I don't know how far their boundary goes. I know you can see them out east in the U.S., but I imagine
Okay.
they venture into Canada. I'm sure. Yeah.
Cool. First question, folks. Okay, well, so speaking of where to go whale watching, one of the questions is what's the best place in the world to go whale watching? No pressure.
Oh my. Any coast. It's all amazing. I mean, you get a completely different habitat. You can get completely different behaviors depending on where you go. So that's such a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
Where is the best place?
And we've done international programs on whales, so it depends on what kind of whale you're looking for as well.
Yeah.
Like orca, we don't really have out where I am in Newfoundland as much. Certainly, when you go to St. John's, you don't see orca, but in BC's coast, you see them all the time. Whereas
Yeah.
humpbacks are really big here. Every time I've ever gone whale watching in Newfoundland, there's been humpbacks galore, like circling the boat for 2 hours. So
Yeah.
you know
I
what?
mean, there's very remote places, remote in terms of how far away they are from where we're situated. Places like Tonga in the Pacific, where there's just a lot less impact. So you see these incredibly large groups of whales that you don't quite see as much here. So anywhere, just
Anywhere.
go for
Head,
it. Yeah.
head to a coast. I'll give a plug to our Canadian coast and especially Newfoundland. Come see me. It's really
Yes.
great out here. But
Absolutely.
great question, guys. All right. Grayson wants to know what's the smallest whale in the world?
Ooh, I think oh, it's a pygmy dwarf. I forget the name. There's
What a
either
name!
pygmy or a dwarf in the
Yeah.
name whale, and that was the example I gave.
Yes.
They're about 7 feet in length. They are the smallest, biggest whale. But yes,
Adorable. So we'll
yes.
have to track that down for everybody too, and I'll put it in the chat in just a second. But so many questions. Wow. It's more than I could already possibly take. Okay. This is one of my favorite questions ever. So we're talking about these great trap inventions. Who invents things like this? Is it engineers? Is it marine biologists? What's the deal?
Really good question. It's definitely a collaborative effort, but they are engineers who are have the amazing brains that know exactly what mechanisms work to let you remotely on your boat press a button on your phone that triggers the machine to then turn on and go up. But it after that it becomes a collaboration with harvesters and also marine biologists just to make sure that it's doing what it needs to, um, and that it can easily be used by those who it is supposed to be targeting. But engineers for sure, they are the brains that are putting the work into actually making these technologies a reality for everyone else.
That. Again, I love solutions like this. It's one of my very favorite things to feature in any of these broadcasts. So the fact that you highlighted them all so beautifully is awesome. And kids, again, no matter what species you're interested in, there are innovations like this happening all the time to help improve their livelihood.
Always.
And so it's like the golden age of conservation right now if you're keen on things like this. Very cool question. All right.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. I'm talking too fast, Shiva. Just tell me to take a long walk off a short pier. It's just very exciting. Caden wants to know, are whales ever poached like some land animals are?
Ooh, poached as in illegally hunted down.
Yeah.
So that's a difficult question to answer. So They, depending on where you are, whales are protected, especially if they are listed under the IUCN Red List, or if there's local protections in place where you not only can't hunt them, but you can't approach them. So you have to be a certain distance away from a whale, even if you are out on the water. Um, and so that wouldn't happen in most cases within Canada and the US. There are exceptions in place for cultural uses where they can hunt whales at certain times of the year. So there's definitely cultural practices. And then there's a little bit more of a difficult situation when it comes to permits that are being allowed for scientific uses through the International Whaling Commission, which is had put a global ban on whale hunting, but there is still some of that being allowed. So scientific purposes, but there are arguments as to what it's
How much
actually being
science
used
is
for.
actually being done? Yeah.
Yes, but very different to the terrestrial poaching and illegal
Yeah.
hunting that's occurring with land mammals. Yep.
And it's worth noting that even the few whales that are harvested for science in a few countries still, it's only a very select group of countries. In fact, it's only a very select group of fishers, like individual fishermen, that are still doing this with, in some cases, like one individual ship. It pales in comparison to how we used to hunt whales. So we
Oh,
used to have like,
absolutely. Yep.
thousands and thousands of whales processed at like processing centers in Antarctica and beyond, South Georgia, and like all of that is gone. So it's still odd that it's happening, and it's slowly being phased out. It really does seem to be the matter of like 4 or 5 guys that are doing this still. So good news for whales is that they're largely not being hunted because of that big global ban. So I love that question, guys. All right. So many good questions. Oh, a tough one, Shiva. No pressure. It's either the easiest or the hardest question in the world for you.
Uh
What
oh.
is your favorite whale?
Ooh,
I
that's
know. I know.
I no, it's actually easy. It's got to be killer whales, and they are, from a behavioral standpoint, they are some of the most incredible whales that currently exist. So they have a matriarchal social society. So it's led by a mother, usually a grandmother on top, and they pass on all of their knowledge to their grandkids and share that. And they have really smart ways of hunting down their food. If you've ever seen, I think it's the BBC Earth clip of them hunting in Antarctica, it's just, it blows my mind. So, killer whales,
So
100%.
as you were saying that, I put it in the chat for everybody already because I knew you were going to go with that.
Yes.
It's like, in general, their hunting's amazing, but the specific featurette in Frozen Planet 2 is like one of the
Yep.
coolest things ever filmed in the history of nature documentaries ever. It'll blow your
100%.
mind. Yeah.
Yep.
Huh, so many good questions. Okay, we're going to do 2 more questions. Time flies when you're having fun. We are nearing the end of the broadcast, but if you're keen to learn more, honestly, head to cwf-fcf.org. So much to explore there. If you've got extra questions for us, please do email them to us. We'll get you some answers, anything you're keen on in whales, but 2 really great ones to wrap up. So, how deep do whales dive? Do we have a figure on that?
Ooh, that is a very good question. I don't know the exact number, but they do dive. They dive, and the right whales do dive all the way down to the seafloor, which varies depending on where they are. But they don't hold the record for marine mammals in terms of how deep they dive. I believe it's elephant seals that hold the record for
Ooh,
the deepest dive, if I'm
that,
remembering that correctly.
yeah.
They go way down. So I don't have a number, but it's
Right.
definitely way deeper than any human can do
Thousands
on
and
their own.
thousands of I will say on this note, because it's literally the most titanic battle to ever have happened in nature, that sperm whales go way down to hunt giant squid. Like, we've barely
Mm,
ever even seen giant squid. We largely know they exist from the giant wounds they inflict on sperm whales, and the fact that when they are eaten by sperm whales, they turn into something inside a sperm whale, which is kind of neat. We harvested for years, but like, you've got to picture this 60-foot whale going thousands of feet down into the
yeah.
black to hunt like a 50-foot squid. Like, it's so metal. It's the coolest thing ever, and I love it.
Sper- Sperm whales are incredible, and you can hear them in the water, and they can be so far away from where you are. I mean, the you were talking about acoustics, clicks, and things like that. They are very impressive with their capabilities. Sperm whales might be second to
Second,
killer
okay.
whales for me.
We're getting a whole hierarchy
Yeah.
as we go through.
Yes.
Huh. Grayson wants to know how many whales are found washed up on the beaches of Canada, and when they're found like that, are they used to research?
Very good question. I don't have a number. It can be very hard to know because depending on how many islands are in a particular area, so on the East Coast, sometimes they can wash up on the shore and we don't know. So it can be in very remote places, unfortunately. And if we can't get to them fast enough where they are fresh, there's actually very little you can do in terms of science and testing to figure out why they washed up on the beach, because that is an unusual thing to happen and it's usually not a good sign for their health or what's happening with the animal. So not I don't have a number. It does happen. There are organizations that you can call if you do see a whale on a beach. Usually it's stranding programs, absolutely, who can then try and get to it. And then where it goes after that, there's museums, there's researchers, all hosts of different people trying to understand different parts of a whale that could really benefit from an animal that's sadly washed up. But good
I,
question.
It's a great question, and I will say so. I live in Corner Brook, and about an hour away is Rocky Harbor. And about 10 years ago, a blue whale washed up in Rocky Harbor,
Mm.
and scientists came from all over the world to learn about it, process it, and they took the skeleton back, and they now have it in the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto.
I've
And
been to that exhibit. It's
such a cool exhibit.
incredible.
And this
Yes.
is my weird note of the day, was we've got an extra minute. So in that exhibit, they had a glass box. And in the glass box was a watch worn by the lead scientist to help process it and cut up the whale and everything else. And the goal was to smell the watch. And so you open this little flap and you smell the watch. And I can tell you
Oh,
that there is no more disgusting smell
yeah.
on this planet than something that's been plunged into a dead whale on a beach. Don't ever do it. It's the worst.
A
Um,
100%. You can smell a beach whale before you see it is the common phrase. But yeah.
Ha, Shiva, this has been so much fun. One of my favorite programs in a very long time. Before we wrap up and say farewell to all our classes, is there any final message you want to leave us with about whales, about the CWF, anything before we say goodbye?
Oh goodness. Thank you all so much. This has been amazing. I love whales and I hope you do too. And there's small things that we can all do to help ensure that they continue to stick around for us to see in the future. Shop local, be careful with things, with Amazon coming through, ship deliveries and things like that. But the best thing to do is just to be out there and see them, and learn about them as best you can wherever you are based. So that is my takeaway.
No better message than that. Learn at home and then come to a coast and see a whale, because there's nothing
Yes,
quite like seeing one, whether it's a dwarf sperm whale or a blue whale, no matter how big, it really will change you. And I hope you'll all
absolutely.
take that chance. Classes, thank you so much for joining us for the whole epic CWF series. Check them all out on YouTube. Learn 3 weeks now down the road, 3 years down the road, whenever you want to tune in again. But for now,